Welcome to the Path of Wellness podcast, the show that empowers you to show up in the world as the best version of yourself. Hosted by licensed acupuncturist, Chinese herbalist, and shamanic practitioner Nicole Barrios, each episode will provide you with practical tips, strategies, and insights that will challenge you to think about health from a perspective of emotional and spiritual well-being. So join me as I journey down the rabbit hole of health, wellness, and spirituality. Ready to dive in? Here we go. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Path of Wellness podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Barrios. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode, and for anybody that caught the last episode, thank you for listening. I am so grateful, so grateful. Now for this episode, this is actually going to be the first of a series of episodes. I'm going to be releasing one every week for the month of November, and it's all going to be related in theme. And the reason for this is because later on this month, I will be releasing my very first online course into the world, which I'm super excited about. And the focus of this course is all about how to optimize and reinforce your immune system and how to do it naturally. And the focus of this podcast and the next couple of podcasts is going to be related to immunity. And I'll describe a little bit more in a second here. But the course, I wanted to get back to the course because it ties into this whole theme. But the course has been such a massive labor of love for me, and releasing it to the world honestly feels a lot like giving birth. Because I've been working on this course for well over a year and a half now. I first started working on it at the very beginning of lockdowns during COVID. So it was March or April of 2020, sometime around there. So I've been working on this for a really long time. So it's been a long gestation period, and releasing it to the world, yeah, it totally feels like giving birth in a way. So I'm nervous and I'm excited about making it public, but I'm also really fired up about it because the whole reason that I created this course in the first place, and I started it during COVID, the beginning of COVID, was because I was frustrated that people were so scared of getting sick. And they were just, hiding in fear. We were literally all hiding in fear in our houses during lockdown. And it just baffled my mind that nobody was being taught other than wash your hands. Thank you for that little bit of common sense that, we all already knew we should be washing our hands. That was all we were being told at that point in time. And it just made me very frustrated that the government or, just anybody, the world at large, was teaching the general populace, what they can actually be doing to strengthen their immune systems and how to be healthy and how to eat well and all of these things that would prevent them from getting sick in the first place or would keep them from, not getting a severe case of an illness, whether it's COVID or the flu or any other type of bug. It made me so mad at that point in time that that's what was happening. And so that's why I created the course, although it's taken me a really long time to finish it. But that was the initial spark for the course, is I wanted to come in and be here's what you need to do. Here's how you can be healthy. Here's how you can optimize your immune system. So yeah, releasing it finally all this time later, it feels really good. I'm just so glad to be finally getting it out there. The course is called Rock Solid Immunity. And it's a very practical course where I teach people exactly what they need to do in order to stay healthy and have a strong immune system. So I go into depth on eating. There's a whole huge chapter just on food, the specifics about what you need to eat in order to have a strong immune system, what to not eat, how to balance your gut bacteria. The whole food section is huge. I also talk about supplements, what supplements to take, what supplements to not take. There's a chapter on optimizing your environment for your immune system and your ultimate wellness. And there's a whole chapter on stress, because stress is a really big cause of immune system problems. And I talk about a whole lot more. It's a very, very in-depth and thorough course, but it is very practical. And so the one thing that I don't really cover in the course, at least more than just as a passing mention, is the emotional and spiritual reasons behind getting sick in the first place. So I thought that it would be cool to spend some time this month in the lead up to my course launch doing some podcasts that dive deep into this aspect of immune health, since going down the rabbit hole of health, wellness, and spirituality is kind of my whole thing here. And I have a whole series, like I said, planned around this exact topic for the whole month. So I thought it would be fun to kick off the series today by talking in general about the emotional and spiritual causes behind being sick. Now, when I say being sick in this instance, I mean getting sick with like a bug, like the flu, a cold, COVID, a stomach bug, or anything like this that's short-lived and self-limiting. Because as I say all the time, there's more to health and wellness than just the physical, and this also applies to getting sick. And getting sick is really, it's a lot more than just germs. Like, yeah, germs are a factor, but there are reasons why your body can be susceptible to being affected by germs, because we're exposed to germs all the time, So it's more than just germs. Like there's factors underlying everything that make your body susceptible to getting sick with the germs. And in this instance, what I want to talk about is like the underlying emotional and spiritual causes that might be making your body susceptible to germs and to getting sick. And yeah, if that sounds cool, let's dive into this. One thing that I wanted to add, like the reasoning why I thought it would be good to do a series on immunity, like the emotional reasons why we get sick and, how our immune systems become weakened from emotional causes, is that I thought it would be empowering. The whole goal of this show is to help empower people to show up in the world as the best versions of themselves. And part of that is being as strong and as healthy as possible. And in order to be as strong and as healthy as possible, like not only do you need to address your physical health needs, but you also need to address your emotional and your spiritual needs as well. And a lot of times the two go hand in hand. And especially if you're having some health problems that aren't really going away, no matter what physical or practical things you're doing, then there's usually an emotional component underneath that needs to be addressed. And that's what I thought would be cool about this episode. And the next one's coming up is that you here's some ideas as to what could be causing your immunity issues. And here's just food for thought, things to have you mull over so that you can potentially address these things and maybe resolve your health issues once and for all. Now, really quick, before I get down into the topic that I wanted to discuss today, I just wanted to have a brief little note here that all of the information that I'm going to cover is really just that. It's for informational purposes only. When it comes to figuring out the spiritual and emotional components to physical ailments, it's kind of like dream interpretation. I don't know if you guys have ever done dream interpretation before, but basically it's subjective. And what that means is that you can get some general information and you choose, it's up to you to decide what resonates with you. And whatever resonates with you, that's probably the correct answer for you. And so basically you just pick whatever answer makes sense to you, and you can dive deep into that. You'll basically know, if you kind of tune into your intuition and just feel your body, you will notice responses that let you know, oh yeah, that particular description that she just described, that is me, that makes sense to me, that resonates to me. And there might be some things that you hear that you're like, no, that's not really me, in which case that's totally fine. Just, hear it, take it with a grain of salt, and just take whatever resonates with you and run with that. I just wanted to mention that first and foremost. Okay, so getting down into it. What are some of the potential underlying emotional or spiritual causes of getting, let's just go with the flu, for example. I'm going to read you guys a passage from this book that I have that I reference quite a bit in my practice. It's called Metaphysical Anatomy. Your Body is Talking, Are You Listening? And it's by Yvette Rose. This is volume 1. I do not have volume 2. I think I have it on my wish list on Amazon, but this is just volume 1. And so it is, if you guys have ever heard of the Louise Hay book, the Heal Your Body, Heal Your Life, this book, Metaphysical Anatomy, is like the Louise Hay book on steroids. It's really big. It's like an encyclopedia, and it covers many, many, many different physical ailments and then what the potential underlying causes might be. And she gives you several different suggestions as to what it can be, and it's kind of like what I was just saying. You have to choose what resonates with you and go with that. And then from there, you can like dig deep and, kind of figure out what exactly is going on with you that needs to be addressed. All right, so potential emotional causes of the flu, according to Metaphysical Anatomy. Sorry, I just had the page and then I lost it. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to read you the passage, just a really, really brief little paragraph here. Potential emotional cause of the flu. You are feeling under the weather and also under someone's thumb. You may be feeling trapped and controlled in your life, as if your sacred space is violated. Your need for change and a bit of freedom with less responsibilities has become more desirable. You may have developed the flu to give a valid reason to make time for yourself without feeling guilty. You may have been focusing on the future too much. Your overwhelming fear of the unknown future may have caused you a great deal of stress. You feel resistant to change and are afraid of the consequences these changes may bring. You have been rigid and inflexible with an influential person, which is taking a toll on your body, mind, and spirit. You are also taking people and life way too seriously. What would happen if you allowed yourself to be more in the flow and stopped trying to control everything? And then from there, she has like a whole section of key points, like potential things that you can, like questions that you can just mull over. I'm not going to read through those because there's a lot, but the passage that I just read sums it up pretty well, I think. And again, take it with a grain of salt, but I find I get the flu literally about once a decade, and this passage resonates with me very deeply. And for me, it's not just the flu. Like if I ever come down with the cold, which happens a little bit more frequently than every decade, but even so, it's all kind of the same underlying concept, that when you've got a lot of things going on in your life, your body will manifest a way to make sense of it all, or to kind of get you to address the problem that needs to be addressed. And in this case, when you get the flu, it really is a valid reason for you to not do anything. And I find this interesting. It kind of ties in with COVID, last year, like we were in lockdown for a couple months, and in some states and countries even longer than that. And I almost feel like it was this collective manifestation of people just needed a break. They needed time away. They needed to do it without feeling guilty. And when it came to the lockdowns, it's like, well, there's really nothing I can do about this. Like the whole world is locked down. And I noticed that once people, in the middle of lockdowns, once people kind of accepted that, it just became okay. And then a lot of people were really enjoying themselves and their time at home, and being able to spend more time with their families, and being able to not have to commute as much, and just not having to be away as much. And yeah, so basically when you've got things going on in your life, your body will physically manifest a way to get your attention to things that need to change. And in the case of getting sick with something like the flu or something like COVID too, like obviously this book came out before COVID was a thing, or at least SARS-CoV-2. But it's kind of the same underlying concept. When you get sick with some sort of, either virus or bacteria that like puts you out of commission for a little while, it's usually because your body needs a break, and for whatever reason, you won't take the break. I find this applies to me very appropriately because that's kind of how I am. Like I push myself a little bit too hard, and I will always have telltale signs that I need to start taking a break, and if I honor that and acknowledge that, then I'm usually fine. But if I don't, then my body forces me to acknowledge it by getting sick. And so that's kind of an underlying emotional component to the flu or COVID. It's oftentimes just a sign that you need a break, and you need to be able to do it without feeling guilty. I don't know what it is about our culture, especially American culture. We're very masculine, like very yang is what we would call it in Chinese medicine. Like we're just go, 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 do, never stop, productivity, just all of that sort of thing. But there needs to be a balance. We need to have the feminine in there as well, and the yin, and the being, and the resting. And so if you're just constantly going all the time, and like logically that you should stop and take a break, but your cultural conditioning is telling you like, no, I can't stop. I have to be productive. If I'm not productive, everything's going to fall apart. But then you wind up getting sick. Or something else that I see happen a lot is people, they know that they're kind of pushing close to burnout, but they've got a vacation planned, like some big elaborate vacation, and they go, and as soon as they get to their destination, they get sick. That happens a lot too. And that when that happens, I feel that has a lot to do with the body finally has a chance to rest. Even though you're on vacation and you're thinking like, oh, I'm going to be running around and playing and enjoying myself and just having a good time, but your body's like, no, you pushed it too hard, and like this is what you get. Like we were trying to warn you that you needed to stop, and you didn't, and now you have to stop. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. There really is just like an underlying component to every physical health manifestation that people have. And oftentimes the physical manifestations that we are creating are happening because basically our body is trying to get our attention, to try to teach us something. I find that there's always a lesson that is to be learned, like through our experiences, especially when it comes to physical experiences that we're having. There's always an underlying lesson. There was a period of time after I had my daughter where my immune system was shot. There were a lot of factors that went into that, and giving birth is just kind of hard on the body, as it is anyways. But I was getting sick a lot with all kinds of stuff. Like I had seasonal allergies, which I've never had in my life before, stomach bugs. I don't think I had the flu, but just a couple of colds, and it was happening very close together, and it was very frustrating. And what I ultimately determined, because it kept happening, is that it had a lot to do with me, the go, like I had been going and going, and I wasn't resting. I wasn't asking for help. That was a big part of it. But I was struggling to actually learn these lessons, and so my body kept making me sick in various different ways. I wasn't having a good year. And it was frustrating. The more it happened, the more frustrated I got. And because I wasn't learning the lesson and it kept happening, it was like this big cycle. I just had a hard time getting out of it. And ultimately what it came down to, or what happened, how I got out of it, is that I got so fed up with it that much like what I said in my how I overcame seasonal affective disorder in my last episode. I just decided I am done with this. Like, I'm done being sick. And there's an element of surrender in here, where if you're getting sick frequently and you're not getting the message, whatever your body is trying to tell you, whatever emotional causes are underneath there, and you're just not getting it, and your body will continue to get you sick, or you'll have injuries, or however it's manifesting for you, until you get the message. And so for me, I had to decide I'm not getting sick anymore. And then there was an element of surrender, like, okay, I'm sick again, and instead of just being mad about it, I'm just going to accept it as gracefully as possible. And once that happened, well, one, the sicknesses got better. Like, I would recover a heck of a lot faster. Like, there was also an element of resistance in there that was making my recovery longer, because I was fighting it. Yeah, there was just this whole resistance piece to it. And that did not help me or serve me at all. And I see this with my patients a lot too in my acupuncture practice, is that they fight a lot of their symptoms, and then they kind of get stuck in this cycle. It's like, okay, your body is trying to tell you something and you're not hearing the message. Or if you are hearing the message, you are choosing to ignore it. And that was kind of what was happening in my case when I was getting sick frequently after having my daughter. Is I kind of knew the message, but I was too stubborn to heed the advice that my body was basically giving me. Like, you need to stop, you need to ask for help. I needed to do a lot of things differently. And for whatever reason, I just didn't want to hear any of that. But I hit the point where I was sick of being sick. And so I decided, okay, it's time to surrender. Like, all right, body, what do we need to do here? And figuring that out, once you make that decision that you want to overcome a health challenge, like, once you make that decision, it's not that difficult. It sounds like it would be this whole complicated process, but once you make the decision and then you just kind of listen to your body and tap into your innate ability to know what it needs, it's pretty easy to figure out. And anybody can do this. It just takes patience and understanding and just a knowledge or an ability to trust yourself, which I find is very accurate for myself and for every patient that I've worked with who does this as well. They, like, when you can learn to trust your body, miraculous things can happen. And a lot of times what happens is the physical issues resolve, and they did in my case. I stopped getting sick, and that's been amazing, but also, like, makes me feel kind of silly in a way, because it could have been a lot easier had I just heeded the advice that my body was giving me in the first place rather than fighting it. So there you have it. Potential underlying emotional causes of the flu and how it manifested for yours truly here. Hopefully that makes sense. It's kind of hard to talk about this topic in a way that doesn't sound convoluted. If any of this is unclear or, convoluted and you need more clarification, please just let me know. I'd be happy to, do a revised episode or leave some more information in the show notes, like whatever you guys need. Like, I want this to be useful and helpful. And and again, it is subjective, like trying to figure out what underlying causes are at the root of your physical ailments. But when it comes to the flu or, just being sick in particular, it almost always has something to do with you needing to take a break, even if you don't want to admit that, as I have been prone to do, not wanting to admit that I need a break or that I need help or that it's okay for me to just surrender and go with the flow. I'm pretty sure this passage that I read mentioned going with the flow a little bit more, or being more flexible. That's what it was. You're inflexible and rigid. Yeah, totally. So if any of that resonates with you, then yeah, maybe just sit with it. Like if you've been getting sick a lot lately, or if you're in the middle of being sick, or I don't know, just in general, just something to mull over, or if you feel like you're starting to come down with something, it might be good to think about something like this, to just mull over in your brain, like, am I pushing myself too hard, and do I need to take a break? Is this my body's way of telling me it's time to just chill for a little bit, or it's going to force me to if I don't do it willingly? And so, yeah. All right. I think I'm going to wrap this episode up. And my next couple of episodes, again, they will still be about like emotional components to being sick. I will have a gratitude episode, like how gratitude affects health and immunity for the week of Thanksgiving. And there will also be an episode on fear and how fear affects your health and your immune system as well. So those should be pretty interesting. So stay tuned for those. And if you haven't already, this is a super new podcast. So if this episode piqued your interest and you want to hear more, I would love it if you would subscribe to the channel. I would love it even more if you could leave a review. Again, I know it's a super new podcast, so not a lot of episodes yet, but reviews are a good way for others to find the podcast, especially on iTunes. If that's the platform that you're listening on, that's my preferred platform. But yeah, I would love it if you would subscribe or leave a review, and just tune into the next episode. And I hope that it's helpful for you. I hope that it kind of gives you something to think about and helps you to understand that like you ultimately are in control of your health and your well-being. And when things happen to your body that don't seem like they're super positive, there is almost always a message underlying all of it that's just trying to get your attention so that you can learn and